Buffalo Bills, with the 7th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Josh Allen.
Professional sports drafts are part of what makes sports so great. Fans across America look up mock drafts, theorize about what their team could do, what their team should do, what their team needs to do. The mock drafts help them get a taste of what players are available, what their team might do, and what would be a good pick. Having your favorite franchise waste a draft pick is one of the worst feelings out there. It's devastating. Your weeks of excitement and preparation feel like they were for nothing. Have mock drafts started ruining fandom to some extent? Whether it's the NBA or NFL, the draft serves as a light at the end of the tunnel. It's something that your team can look forward to get better in the future and move your franchise forward in the right direction. Oftentimes, the draft is the most anticipated part of the season for many teams. Good mock drafts allow the fans to engage with the player pool and the organization's needs to help them feel more engaged, more part of the team, and get excited about the future of the franchise. Part of the fun is fantasizing about what your team could do, what their team should do. Fans learn prospects, needs, and they feel like they have a good understanding of what a good draft might look like. What even makes a mock draft good? Mock draft should be, first off, entertaining. It's an entertainment system. We're here to enjoy sports. They should also probably be accurate and somewhat insightful that, gets players' names right, players' positions right, and gives the fans accurate information to go and use. Mock drafts should try to have some originality. You shouldn't just go rip off one person's mock draft, change one thing, and post it as your own. It also helps, to create conversations if everyone's not doing the exact same mock drafts. Having all those together is kind of hard for these bigger outlets. They're not going to get as many clicks or as many views if they're just posting the same thing that everyone else is doing, even if it might be the most accurate, the most correct, the best insight. If we look back at that Josh Allen clip, obviously those Buffalo Bill fans are in the wrong. I'm sure they don't feel the same way. They probably all have Josh Allen jerseys. When thinking about a good mock draft, is it better to have what a team should do or what a team will do? We want to be predicting what will be best for the team overall. Is a better mock draft actually giving what the team's going to do? That's where things become tricky, because how do you prove, or what's the correct way to say what a team should do? Is that based on now? Is that based on the next couple years? And then with what a team's going to do, there's so many factors that most people don't have knowledge of, don't have access to, whether that's medicals, trades. For some things, it's going to be impossible to predict or know what's going to happen. In the standard NBA year, around 4 to 6 first-round picks are swapped on or right before draft night, which are pretty much impossible to predict unless there's tons of buzz going around. But oftentimes, there's a lot of smoke and a lot of gamesmanship around draft night, with teams not wanting to let other teams know what their actual picks are, where they actually have players and which ones they prefer. For instance, on draft night, you have the classic Luka Doncic for Trae Young deal. The Mavs and Hawks swaps pick 3 and 5. It's a nearly impossible event to accurately predict not only the trade to happen, but who each team is going to take. So if you don't have that in your mock draft, does that make it worse? Should that be a factor of whether a mock draft is good or bad? When we go back to the Chiefs drafting Patrick Mahomes, they didn't even have a top 15 pick in that draft. They had a really solid quarterback in Alex Smith. How do you predict that they're going to trade up, a first round pick in the future, a current player, to go and get pick number 10? And with that, go take a quarterback, which isn't necessarily a position of need for them. Secondly, if you predicted that, you probably get a lot of flack online for making a stupid pick, a stupid trade. The Chiefs would never do that, especially for this guy, Patrick Mahomes. That is an example of something that would be really hard to predict, and really hard to predict that the team should do that. Obviously, looking back, it was a great trade for them. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback since Tom Brady. He's won 3 Super Bowls, multiple Super Bowl MVPs. It was a franchise-altering trade in the right direction, but nearly possible to predict what would happen and the impact and success of what happened. Along with that is the kind of domino effect of teams doing that. So not only is it hard to predict, which teams are going to trade, when they're going to trade, who they're going to pick there, but it's also impossible to predict how that's going to affect other teams, because we don't know about the trades. In that same draft, teams might have had a quarterback on their board higher or lower than Patrick Mahomes. They're not expecting the Chiefs to trade up. Chiefs shouldn't be there. The Chiefs aren't there. And that totally shifts the entire mock draft. Team needs to be totally different now. The prospects are different. The board's different than everyone thought it was going to be. There's a very funny clip with the Rams reacting to Cole Strange getting drafted.
If as an example, you really
just went.
Oh my, UT Chattanooga to the first round.
How about that? And we wasted our time watching him, thinking he'd be at 104 maybe.
Kind of shows how even some of the teams viewed players differently. They have different boards. They have different ideas of what's going to happen. You don't have Cole Strange going in your mock draft in the first round. Does that make you bad because you were inaccurate? So there's just some things that people can't predict on what's going to happen that kind of mess up or affect the entire draft. Kind of like the idea of the butterfly effect, that one, small draft will then change the pick order, will change the team need order, lead one team to pick a different guy that they didn't think was going to be there. Maybe one guy isn't there that they thought for sure was going to be there. All of a sudden your mock draft past that pick is all messed up. Going back to whether, the challenge of saying what your team should do or how that will affect it in the future is also very difficult. It makes projecting short and long-term hard. Take a look at this clip from Jordan Poole getting drafted.
Pick Jordan Poole by the Warriors.
Maybe the worst pick in the draft so far.
There we go.
And there's nothing against Jordan Poole. No offense, dude. I think the guy could be a rotation NBA player someday. This is a guy that you likely could have gotten as an undrafted free agent. So this is such an overdraft. I mean, this is an absolutely inexplicable pick by the Warriors.
All right.
See, this is very interesting because looking back, obviously, it seems like a great pick for the Warriors. Jordan Poole helped them win a championship. He was an integral part of that team, played amazingly in his role. People thought he might be the future of the Warriors. So, one of the best players in the NBA. He looked amazing at times on the Warriors. Fast forward to now, does he still have that same value? Where do you rate that pick now? Because he had his worst season ever for the Pelicans. He kind of got benched for around half the season. Didn't play great when he was playing, and his value or perceived value is, tanked almost completely. But still, obviously for the Warriors are going to make that pick because he was a huge part of, making a championship. Is it still a good pick? There's also maybe the argument that maybe the Warriors could have gotten Jordan Poole at the end of the draft or as a undrafted free agent. How do we know what other teams thought about him? Was someone else going to take him? Who knows? But winning a ring is winning a ring. Along with that is, what makes a player a bust? Is it only that player's responsibility? Is it part of the, the team or the opportunity? Player has all the talent in the world, but they're not, set up for success. They might not blossom to where they're supposed to be or where they can be. This is a little bit of a stretch, but there probably is a world where the Nuggets, who drafted Jokic in the mid-second round in the 40s, what happens if, he tears his ACL early in his career and they kind of just waive him? Like, you know what? Second round, late draft pick. He had some potential, obviously really like him, but it's not worth wasting money on a guy who might never be the same again. Or if he gets drafted to a different team where he doesn't have the same opportunities, the same development staff, maybe not as much belief. Obviously, Jokic is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's a 3-time MVP, NBA champion. He probably would have worked out. But I don't think it's crazy to say there's a world where he gets injured, something happens, and he gets waived, and we never really see him at his full potential. A great example of this is Steve Young, who was drafted by the Buccaneers in a supplemental draft, and his first season, he was not great. He led his team to be 3-16. He threw 21 picks and just 10 touchdowns. Tampa Bay, for what seemed like good reason, kind of gave up on him. They traded him to the 49ers, where he sat behind Joe Montana, and he was able to develop, maybe get the attention or advice or training that he needed, and he was able to flourish there. Steve Young went on to win 2 MVPs and a Super Bowl. Did Tampa Bay's kind of poor opportunity or offensive line or development almost derail the Hall of Famer's career? Is there a world where if he goes to the 49ers first or a different team, that he's better at first or maybe even worse at first? Who knows? Another example I love about, right time, right place, right organization, right staff is Herb Jones, who was taken with the 35th pick in the 2021 draft by the Pelicans. The Pelicans also had a near lottery pick in Trey Murphy, who's also been great, but the team was kind of riddled with injuries at the time. Zion missed the whole season, I believe. Ingram had some injuries here and there. Herb Jones, who kind of got passed on because of his age, his lack of shooting, all of a sudden he gets to the Pelicans summer camp and the coaches and staff, are like, wow, this guy's really good. He's a great defender. Here's a little clip of the Pelicans GM talking about kind of that process and their head coach realizing the talent they had.
Last year, first summer league practice, Willie, we're still in New Orleans at the time, working through free agency, and after the practice, Willie calls Trajan and I and says, hey, Herb Jones, didn't you guys say you thought he'd be in Birmingham at some point? Mm-hmm. We said, yeah, probably get some minutes in Birmingham. He said, there's one practice. Griff, I don't think he's going to ever go to Birmingham. I mean, he does things you can't teach. Third practice of Summer League. It's a true story. Third practice of Summer League. He says, Griff, if it's okay, you're going to think I'm crazy. I'm going to start him.
Now, if you combine with this development and talent realization, along with the potential and opportunity that the Pelicans have with kind of their philosophy, easily Herb Jones could have gone to a different team, or the Pelicans could have been more healthy and they would not have known nearly as soon, or maybe he wouldn't even be the player now. Finally, fans, media outlets, those who cover the draft, most of the time don't always know all the details. They aren't in the private workouts. They aren't in necessarily all of the conversations with agents, teams, GMs. They don't have access to the medical documents all the time and stuff like that. If we look at Gerard McCoy, who was projected to be upper first round pick, as long as the medicals were okay, I mean, people knew that he didn't play for a full season. He probably wasn't 100%, but it seemed like the general consensus was he was going to be able to play. He fell till day 3, which was crazy. No one had him falling that far, and it may seem like his medicals are worse than the general public knew. It remains to be seen, will he play this year? What will he be like going forward? But that's another element that's almost impossible to predict when we don't have access to all that information. It kind of goes to show that, the Twitter reactions of, how is McCoy still on the board? How has he not been drafted? And it kind of seems now, like looking back even a few days later, it was probably a good reason he hadn't been drafted, because the medicals weren't very good. Another thing with that is we don't know about necessarily all these niche prospects, harder for the NBA especially, just because of like foreign guys and stuff like that. If we look back at the 2025 draft, I believe, with Hansen Yang, who won at pick 16, I believe. No one had that. Not even analysts or insiders had that. He wasn't a position of need. He wasn't projected to go that high. They probably could have gotten him if they traded back or back into the start of the second round. Does that make a mock draft worse for not having him? It remains to be seen how good he's going to be. He looked better maybe at the start of his first year and doesn't look as good now. There's so much unknown, so much mystery, and so much smoke that goes along with the analysis and consensus opinions of online, on different media outlets. It just really makes mock drafts kind of complex. Not sure exactly what to do with information, but just be more cautious, more careful, when reading, when going over mock drafts. No need to burn people for their picks in the past from 5 years ago where they had someone higher who doesn't look great now. But I also think it's important to hold people accountable from just kind of spewing misinformation or things that they don't know or can't know. But yeah, I love mock drafts. I love the draft season. Super excited for the NBA one coming up. Super excited to see how these, NFL rookies do this year, and, reviewing what was smoke, what was real, and see how these guys' careers go on.